What?
Sure.
Recording in progress. All right. So, yeah, how's it going?
Wait, hold on. I'll connect to the earphones first.
It's all good. You can answer that
Let's
question
see.
whenever's good for you.
Wait, why doesn't it connect? Oops. Am I out? Okay, here. Pairing. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. Either way, I still can hear you with or without the earphones anyway. Okay, so update. Sorry I wasn't able to like give you any updates since my last gig, but it went out really well. Um
Nice.
because I during that day I was actually like I was rushing to two gigs. The first one is the Jazz Fest, and the second one is another gig I had for a separate company. And as much as I try to practice the things that you were telling me about, even though I did use um some of the tips that you told me about like putting some ad libs in between those spaces in Calibre, I did do that.
Nice.
Uh the rest of like the tips or um like rehearsing for the rest of the songs wasn't I wasn't too like specific on that because like I was rushing to the my head's on another space, because I was
Yeah.
rushing to the next gig. But it all went well. Thank you so much for your help. It did really expand um my musical experience. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. If
Nice.
I need
How,
any videos, I'll send it to you.
please, yes. And let me know how it went with listening to the band and that mindset shift. Were you able to incorporate that?
I'm sorry.
Like listening to the band and reacting to what they're doing, like we were talking about last
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I actually used that what you taught me about that in my live gigs instead. In because I was performing in Jazz Fest with a different band. So, I feel like that day we were all not in our headspaces for some reason because even it wasn't just me, it was even my other bandmate Tim because we were both rushing to the next gig and the other band
Mm,
was also like in a different headspace. But I used that thing you told me, like listen to the band, listen to the stories that they're telling during the ad libs and the stuff like that, and it does make a difference. Now that you told me that, like whenever we do our solos and we get to the messy part at the last bit where we just randomly do solos, um uh I see it now more as a storytelling segment, and it becomes more beautiful because I do wait for the spotlight. And you told me that like I give them the spotlight, and then when you feel like it becomes like repetitive and they're we've gone past the peak or the incline, you can help them out by adding some stuff and enhancing the whole experience. So it
yes.
wow.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Amazing.
And sometimes you notice that the storyteller has kind of run out of ideas right now, and then you, as a kind of supporting character, need to come in with something different to kind of spice it up for a second and save them from that rut, you know?
Yeah.
And that might give them an idea for how they move forward in being the main character. Mm.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. That's a so yeah, it's not just enhancing each other, but also trying to push him to bring him to a different direction and still make him shine. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Because as supporting characters, that's what we have to do. Um, that's how the whole comes together to create the most beautiful big picture possible. If everybody is focused on what the main character is doing, and as I said, if the main character runs out of ideas for a second, you might just need to get take the spotlight even for 1, 2, 3 seconds with a new rhythmic pattern or something that kind of
Mm,
turns the main character on again and gets their creativity flowing once
mhm.
more so that they're not stuck anymore, because the worst thing about any story ever is when the main character doesn't know how to main character, you know.
Yeah.
That's
I
and
should do
so
a workshop for the guys too.
Exactly. As supporting characters, we're not just there to kind of do our thing and not get in the way of the main character. We also need to take full ownership and responsibility for the big picture. Everybody needs to do that, not just the main character. And as a supporting character in that arc, the way you take responsibility for that is to keep your ears open the entire time for, is the band, are we not connecting with the audience anymore right now? Um, is the story we're telling perhaps not quite hitting home as hard as we would like it to be? Or maybe we've just gone off the rails completely and nothing exciting is happening. Everybody in the room is questioning of where could they possibly be going with this? Um,
Mhm.
but the thing is, moments like that are such an opportunity for beauty as well, because it's precisely from those moments that the hero's journey arc can be fully completed, and the character can be fully developed. It's when the audience is questioning, okay, wait, this isn't going anywhere right now. And then all of a sudden something happens that makes it all make sense, that puts everything that came before
Mhm.
into perspective, and it reaches a climax, and the story finally hits home emotionally and gives the audience an emotional value.
Yeah.
So those moments are really not to be feared. They're a part of the experience, and they are quite essential to the arc as well, if you know
Yes.
how to manipulate them.
Hmm. Like I think the saying like it takes a village applies to everything in life, even in your solo journey,
Mm,
metaphorically and musically.
mm. It takes a village. What does that, how do you interpret that one?
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't heard that.
So there's an African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to like
Right.
your neighbor's child is your child. My child is my neighbor's child. We help each other as a community, as a whole village to raise our children. And it just makes the community better. It makes the life experience better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful quote that that's been going on in my head like for a couple of months now. And I do apply it every time. I forget that, sometimes I'm too over in my head. Like I have so much confidence, like I say, I'm amazing. But sometimes I have to remind myself that this quote always reminds me that I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be who how amazing I am if it wasn't for the help of a lot of people who brought me here, my
Yeah.
bandmates, my the people who helped me in my career, my parents, So even through this journey of playing music, I'm always grateful. Like, sorry.
No stress, no stress.
It's there's a thing, it's always like this in the Philippines where um there's always whenever there's a big stormy weather, there's always like brownouts and electrical failures. So that's what happened.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I guess like you said, it takes a village. Those storms are also playing their part.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. We're here. We're here. Let me just
Nice.
switch to my earphone so I can hear you better because I'm outside now.
No stress.
Earbuds. All right. Okay. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So
Nice.
we'll just be outside of my apartment for now.
All right, all right, all right. Nice. Is this okay for you? Like
Yeah,
this?
it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like the outdoors anyways.
Nice. Yeah, I've been enjoying those quite a bit last few days. Weather's been crazy, crazy good. South of Germany is really wild for an Icelander when it comes to heat and sun.
Mhm.
And some days I'm actually suffering from the heat a little bit. But yeah.
Really, you're not used to the heat?
No, not really. Summers in Iceland are like 20 degrees, maybe sometimes.
Wow.
Um, this here it goes up to 30, 40. It's pretty wild. Um, yeah, anyway, let's talk about some music theory. That's what we were talking about going into last time, at least.
Yeah, yes,
Um,
yes, I believe.
like I wanted to explore this song Girl from Ipanema with you, if that's
Okay.
okay. Yeah? Okay.
Hmm.
So this is a song that you play with your band sometimes, right? Or
Oh yeah. Very often actually.
Mhm. Nice. Did you go in and learn the chords of the A section?
Unfortunately, no, because like I was traveling the whole week, so I didn't get a hold of my guitar and everything. So
Hmm.
that's something I'm gonna work on next
Yeah, no
time.
worries, no worries. Would have been yeah, I think that's going to be really cool for you to learn the method of how to practice improvising over a chord progression like that, because that chord progression is
Hmm.
really quite jazzy and complex, and you'd have to switch scales on the fly. And so if we can
Hmm.
cover even just the A section of that song, then that would really propel you to some new heights, I think, with your scatting.
Hmm.
um so do you have your guitar there, or is that maybe awkward with the phone?
Mm, let me see. I don't have a. Oh, maybe I can. We can get. Let me just get inside my car, and then we can practice from there. That way, I don't need to hold my phone as much. If that's all right with you.
Yeah, whatever
I'm
works for
sorry,
you.
because you know, there's no signal. All right.
I can hear you again. You were dropping for a second.
Okay. I'm sorry. I lost you for a bit.
No stress, no stress. I guess the connection might have been bad in there or something.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So whenever I go inside the house, I lose the internet because there's no signal in my inside our apartment now.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
I rely on like Wi-Fi, and since there's no electricity, I can't use the Wi-Fi. That's why I'm just using cellular for now. All right. I
Mm.
guess we can do it in the car.
That looks
It's
nice.
easier that way.
Yeah. Do you
All
have
right. Okay,
is
let
there
me
enough
just
leg space there to play the guitar?
let's hope so. Okay, here we go. There we go. There we go.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. We got the setup. Um, okay, so let's start by going over the chords real quick so you can play those. Do you know what key you usually do it in with your band?
Um, oh no.
If not, then I will take.
Can you play the original key for me?
That's the thing. There are kind of two original keys depending on what school of thought you come from. But I'm gonna check the video you sent me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You do it in A flat. You're up here. Lol and tan and young and lovely, a girl from Ipanema goes walking. When she passes each one, she passes. Yeah, that's it. So those
Ooh.
chords are a bit complicated for a beginner on the guitar. So I'm wondering if it's okay for you that we do this. Let me think what would be most convenient. Hmm. No, actually, it doesn't get more convenient if we transpose it. Let's do it in A flat. I'm going to try to teach you the bossa nova chords. Let me know if this is too difficult for you. Um, so
All right.
take your first finger on the fourth fret of the E string.
Yeah. A fourth. Sorry.
Yeah. And then you skip the A string. Don't play that one at all. Third finger on the fifth fret of the D string.
Okay. I, I wait.
You're going one string too
I think
early.
my. Oh, sorry.
So if I just say this
This one?
with the tab pattern, it's 4 and then X, because we're not playing the A string. 5,
Oh, okay, okay.
5, 4.
Let me check.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, because like is it this?
That
Am I doing it
looks
wrong?
almost right. You're on the, so it's 4 over here, and then
Yeah.
nothing on the A string. And then you take your
Oh,
third
okay.
finger for the fifth
Yeah.
fret of the G string, D string, sorry.
So this is the G. Wait, this is EAG, right? So
Exactly.
G. Okay.
EAD, actually. Sorry, I
Oh,
misspoke. It's
EA.
the D string, so you should have these two notes.
I think my guitar is like a little bit out of tune. Wait, let me just.
That's fine, as long as it's in tune with itself.
Let's see. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm kind of good.
Okay.
So we're here on the 4, and then there we go.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, you can't really strum this. You have to
Okay.
pick it with because you're not playing the A string at all. You're playing the E, D, G, B
Mm-hmm.
strings. So you kind of have to use this finger for the E string, and then these three for the other three strings in the chord. It's like this.
All right. Okay. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Like that?
So you should be playing those two notes right now, but
Mm-hmm.
the tab for the chord is 4x 4x554. This is what you should have.
All right. Do you think it's quite difficult if we play something that too complicated?
Maybe,
Should we
yeah.
try for a more simpler song?
Also, your guitar sounds quite out of tune. That might be a bit of a problem. Do you have a tuner there?
Hold on, you're a bit choppy on my end.
Do you have a
Sorry,
tuner
it's
over there?
really the internet. It's not. It, yes, but it's like an online. It's like an app tuner.
Hmm. Okay. Then, if you need to jump off the call to tune, then I think that would be worth it.
All right. Okay, let me just do that real quick and then call you again.
All right.
Okay, okay. Excuse me.
No stress.
Hold on.
Hmm. Hmm. Ba- ba- ba-
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah, I hope this works.
I think it would be a nice goal for the rest of this session just to get down what the main core of the exercise that I wanted to give you for next week would be. Um,
All right.
so um, let's do let's focus on what's necessary for you to understand exactly what it is that I mean by this,
Mm-hmm.
because I think once you start doing this exercise over this chord progression, you're going to become really unstoppable really fast when it comes to scatting over this. So I wanted to basically give you the chords of the song, and then I wanted to give you a scale to sing on top of each one of those chords, just like we did with the major scales and the chromatic scales at the beginning. But this time applied to an actual chord progression in an actual song. So not
Okay.
just taking any old random major scale and singing that over the root note, do, da, dee, da, da, dee, da, da, with a chromatic scale like we were doing, but actually taking the chords of the song, and I'll do a quick demonstration of this right now, and singing the scale, the appropriate scale over each one of those chords. Because
Okay.
This is not a song where you can use the same scale over the entire chord progression. You need to change scales between chords, basically. Does that land?
I don't get it. I need to change scales between chords.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so for one chord there's a specific set of scales, and then the next chord has a different set of scales.
exactly, except there's only one scale
Okay.
for each chord, which is a different set of notes for each chord, basically, that works with that chord.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So for a lot of pop songs that only stay with the diatonic chords of their keys, that is, all the chords they use are within the key that they start in and within the key that the song belongs to. In those cases, you can use that key the entire time, that diatonic scale the entire time, no matter what chord is going on. And that's true of most pop songs today. For example, the good old 1 5 6 4 chord progression, the that probably sounds familiar. You could just go ahead and sing the diatonic scale of the one chord over this entire thing. And it always works.
Oh, okay.
Same scale over each one of those 4 chords. Doesn't matter because all of those 4 chords belong to the same scale. So the same scale goes
Okay.
over every one of those chords. But Girl from Ipanema is more jazzy than that. It uses chords that have notes that don't belong to the scale that it starts out in.
Mm.
So I think for the sake of practicing this, I'm not going to teach you the chords. I could still give you the tabs for the chords if you want to practice them. So you'll
Mhm.
have all the information you need to be able to learn them if you want, but it's not a requirement to be able to do this exercise. What you do need to know is just how to play the root notes of each chord. And the root notes are tall and tan and young and lovely. The girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes each one, she passes goes. That's what you would be required to play to be able to do the exercise.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily this specific rhythm, but you would need to be able to play just the right note, the right root note over the right, or should I say, under the right part of the melody.
Correct me if I'm mistaken. Is the root note usually sorry, it's kind of raining out here. But is the root note usually the bass, also like the basis for the bass notes?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. It's not always the case because, as we covered in the first lesson,
Mhm.
a chord is made up of a triad, usually. It's the basis of triadic harmony. And sometimes the bass will be playing not the root, but maybe the third or the fifth. But most songs, most of the time, use the root for the bass note. Yeah. So this is what Girl from Ipanema sounds like, the A section, that is. If I only use the root for the bass notes, I can give you an example of using the fifth for the bass note later. Oh. Wait, sorry, my jazz mind just took me for a spin there. I actually just played it in 2 different keys there in one go. I'm used to playing it in D flat
Nice.
and I jumped over. So this would be it with the root notes, sorry, with the root notes for the bass. wanted to play the fifth in the bass, then I would I had to change the voicing there quite a bit because of the limitations of the guitar. But those are the same chords, just with a different bass note, basically. This chord is also this chord.
Okay.
This chord is also this chord. So, staying on topic, I was going to go into the scales that belong to each one of those chords, basically. So what I want to do first of all is just try singing the major scale of the tonic chord over each one of those chords and see what that sounds like, just like I did with the before. So that would be bow, bow, ba, da, 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 ba, ba. Do, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da. Works fine with the one chord, right? But then if I go to the second chord, that note would have to be a half step higher. Bow, bow. Works, 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 works. Doesn't work, 'cause this one works. So basically, every single note of the tonic major scale works for the second chord too, except for the fourth note. That one needs to be a half step higher. Then basically the same idea for the third chord in the progression. Let's try singing the tonic major scale on top of that. Yeah. What do you think?
Works,
yeah. That it turns out that that one works for this for the third chord. Doesn't work for the second chord because of this note. But then this note goes down a half step and it becomes what it's supposed to be in the tonic major scale. So tonic major scale works for that one. And then the spiciest chord by far of the progression hits. And almost every single one of the notes in the tonic major scale is wrong for this chord. It's like it's really hard to sing this because it's so harsh and dissonant.
Yeah.
And the other notes are like that as well. You can go through that as homework to convince yourself of how badly that works. If you want to do that, you have all the information you need. If you want to go in and do that, sing an A flat major scale over A in the bass.
So I have to go higher if
Exactly. Yeah. What you just sang there was an A major scale. As opposed
long as it matches as long as it matches the root note of the chord, is that right?
Exactly. Yes. Basically, you think
I'm gonna get there.
This is what jazz players are thinking all the time when they're doing solos over a chord progression. They're thinking, what chord is going on right now? What scale do I need to play in order to fit to that chord and not be too dissonant? That's really the whole challenge of playing over changes. It's really hard. It takes a lot of practice to know at all times what note you can go to next when the chord changes. because you have to have the entire grid of another scale in your mind at all times, and you need to know where is the closest note that I can jump to after this one. Because it's like, if you're just playing the scale, I mean, if you always have to think in terms of the root note of each scale, then you basically always have to jump back to the one of each chord. And that sounds extremely boring. So what you want to do, or what you want to be able to do, is to play continually without having to do big leaps every time the chord changes. So playing over the A flat major, and maybe the chord changes when I'm on the 6th scale degree, and it changes to the 2nd chord in the progression. And then I need to think, what's the closest note to this one in the other scale? Because if I always go, always jumping back to the one, it's like it totally loses momentum and flow. So basically, what jazz players do to practice this is to take maybe 4 notes over each chord and always play upwards. That's note number 4 in this scale, and now I need to switch to a different scale, but continue playing upwards.
Okay.
And then from that note, what's the next note in that scale? Would, and then it changes to this chord, and I need to know, okay, continually going upwards as opposed to always jumping to the root note of each scale. And you do that so that you can so that you can remain in the creative flow as much as possible, like we were talking about in the first lesson, or the second, I think. What this is really about is making these technicalities completely subconscious, so you don't need to continually be consulting your rational mind to say, hey, what the hell can we do over this chord? It's coming up and I don't know where I'm supposed to go next. If you can completely internalize this, then you don't need to think about where you're going next. Your muscle memory and your subconscious takes care of that. And what you can remain focused on is continually creating beautiful melodies over the chord progressions that are happening, while subconsciously avoiding all the so-called avoid notes, and sounding good over the entire thing. It's basically freeing yourself of all limitations, because if you don't know these scales, then you're gonna feel like, okay, wherever I step, there might be a landmine. You know, I might be about to hit a really wrong note each time the chord changes. But if you internalize this completely and you trust your ability to never mess this up, then you can remain in the creativity, which is really where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be telling the audience a story that they relate to and giving them an emotional climax. And all of this is just making that easier for you. So it's never the purpose here to turn music into mathematics. It's really the purpose here to get so good at the technicalities that you don't have to spend any of your conscious attention thinking about them, so that you don't need to think about them. So that's really the point of practicing all of this. And we can get more into the mindset of how you turn practice into something that's fun, because for a lot of people, practicing this stuff is like, well, it's like, okay, yeah, I know I should be practicing this. I get the reasons for it, but man, this is the most boring thing. Just going through the scales. And at first it takes so much energy switching scales on the fly like that. But I can tell you it's worth it.
Yeah, I can already get that. As long as I get to understanding the scales in each chord, it's easier to go through. I mean, it'll be muscle memory. When there's a chord shift, I would definitely know what uh what notes to sing next.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And you
yeah, it's worth it.
you intuitively hear it too. If you know the chord progression of a song, then you start hearing the options you have beforehand, and you have a few different options laid out in front of you subconsciously, and you pick the one that suits the one that conveys the metaphor that you want to convey that time to be able to continue telling the story you want to tell. This is about having the variety of the palette that you need in order to be able to tell a good story. It's like a writer having a good vocabulary, basically, to be able to convey the emotion that they're trying to convey in the most effective way possible. So I see this as really, you know, our kind of our jobs as musicians to get good at this stuff, because this really takes you to the next level when it comes to intuitive storytelling with your music. And I mean, what is music if not storytelling?
That's true.
So yeah, how are we doing on the time? All right, I definitely need to go very shortly. So let me lay out the basics for this exercise that I want you to do.
Okay.
And I'll upload this. You can, maybe I'll just mark the time. I'll put a timestamp for this section so you can go straight here to remind yourself what the exercise was exactly. And if you have any questions, then just shoot them over on WhatsApp.
All right.
So the chords are A flat major 7, B flat 7, B flat minor 7, A flat no, sorry, A major 7. And the scales that you need to sing over each one of those chords are A flat major, over the B flat 7, we have a B flat Lydian sharp 11. That's a very jazzy scale. It sounds like this.
Oh, yeah.
I'll sing it over the chord just to make that clear. It's especially the fourth note, the sharp 11, that makes it super, super spicy. Be careful not to sing the. Actually, you can experiment with the natural 11 as opposed to the sharp 11. That's the one that really takes. I feel like that's the note that's really gonna make the jazz enthusiasts in the audience think, okay, yeah, this girl really knows her shit. You know, if they hear a sharp 11 on a seventh chord like that. And you kind of need to get used to it to be able to hear it intuitively. But once you get it, you'll know. So sharp 11 first, and then natural 11, just to give the example. Wah, wah, versus wah, and over the B flat minor 7, you're going to sing a B flat Dorian scale, which is actually the same thing, more or less, as an A flat major scale, just starting from a different note. It's a mode of the A flat major scale, basically. Then that's an easy one. That's the one where the A flat major scale also worked. So next chord is A major 7, and over that you're going to sing A Lydian, which is be careful here not to sing the natural 11 and instead the sharp 11. I'll give you the comparison one more time. Natural 11, sharp 11, natural 11, sharp 11, versus up and down and in all sorts of intervals, however much playing you can get around to doing with this exercise, the better, obviously. But that's the basis. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How would you know if, as you mentioned, like Dorian and Lydian scale, how would you know if I'm gonna use those kind of scales on the chords, if
Mm.
ever?
That depends on the chord quality. If it's a major 7 chord, if it's a minor 7 chord, or a dominant 7 chord, or a minor major 7 chord, augmented chord, diminished chord, half diminished chord. It really depends. And over each chord, there's usually a couple different options when we're talking about the traditional jazz way of looking at things. Usually you have a couple different options for scales for each chord, and that's the beauty of it too. You're able to kind of subtly change the tiny little details of the color of each chord depending on what scale you choose to sing over that. For example, most of the time the lydian scale and the regular major scale are interchangeable over a chord. If you have a major 7 chord, you can either sing the major scale, natural major scale, or lydian scale. The only difference is that the natural major scale has a natural 4 or perfect fourth, or a natural 11, same thing. And the lydian scale has a sharpened fourth degree, an augmented fourth, or a sharp 11. And it's just a little subtle difference in color, really.
Okay, okay. Wow, I've learned. This is so interesting because like you did definitely taught me like the fundamentals of how to now if I have a bar or a progression that I can do a solo in, I just need to know the chords to it and then just practice the scales on it, and then I could master my scatting over it now. Wow, thank you.
Exactly, exactly. And as
Yeah,
a
it you made it sound so simple. Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear that, Joanne. It's like it's kind of hard to convey this sometimes because it feels so cerebral and so boring and so technical. So I'm so delighted to have an enthusiastic and curious student like you who actually is receptive to this. It's not a given thing.
I think it does help that I already have the knowledge. I just need the technicalities, and you just conveyed it in a way that that made it so easy to digest, you know. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanne. One final note as a closing note, basically, to be able to perform a good improvised solo over a chord progression like this, whatever it is, um, you don't have to know everything. That's a trap that some people fall into when they're first getting into this kind of switching scales on the fly kind of playing, playing over the
Mm.
chords as it's known in the jazz world. They think I need to know the scale perfectly and I need to know all of the options and I need to convey all the harmonic information that the chord is trying to convey. Basically, if you have a 7 chord, I need to play the most important notes that define a 7th chord then. Or I need to be aware of every single tension that is available to me when improvising over this chord. But that's not the case at all. You can really simplify this for yourself, and you can take the most important notes of the scales, like I was talking about with the sharp 11 over the B flat 7 chord before, especially. Um, you can take that note or the notes that sound the best to you and just write a tiny little phrase using just that note. It really doesn't have to be much, and it doesn't have to be complicated at all. You can really cheat with this so hard. Just write a tiny little lick here and a tiny little lick there, and then you can decide, I'll sing that lick, and then I'll do a little improvisation with these three notes in any order or something, and then back into something else that you've decided beforehand, and it's going to sound like an amazing solo. So don't feel like you need to do everything all at once, but definitely do practice the scales to gradually progress to the level where you don't need to decide stuff like that beforehand, but just know that it's going to sound amazing even if you do decide something beforehand. And this is kind of the superpower that lets you make very informed decisions about what you want to decide beforehand.
All right. Wow, thank you. Thank you for not pressuring me into too much, because it does help me take it step by step and at my own pace as well. So yeah, I will definitely put that in mind.
Nice, Joanne. Well, until next time, again, any questions, send them over on WhatsApp. I know there's a lot of technicality to take in. I hope this is useful to you. I think it is. I think you're
It
gonna really
is.
elevate your playing for your upcoming gigs and for untold gigs of the future as well. And well, we still have one more session together, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I want to confirm the payment next week on Tuesday. Is that still okay?
Yes, that's definitely fine.
Okay,
All
nice.
right.
I'll send that over then, upload the session shortly. Have a nice rest of the day. I hope you get your power and internet back soon, and I hope you're
I
able to
know.
enjoy the rainy season.
Yeah, I love the rain. It gives me time to look back and I mean just stay at home and rest.
Yeah,
So it's a good reminder to rest.
embrace the season.
All right. Exactly. All right.
Mwah.
Thank you to me.
Thank you, Joanne. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.